Hello, listening to the Robot Wars History podcast where we chart the development of the show and the British robot combat scene in general by looking at key teams and bots. I'm your host Luke, and with me today is Nick.
Hello.
Dan.
Hi.
And joining us once again, special guest, Zeddy's Replicas.
Good morning. I've finally figured out how to use a microphone.
Hooray!
It's always, I'd say that's like an always necessary thing to be on our podcast, but we did have pretty abysmal mic quality for about the first 10 episodes, so...
Oh god, yes.
You're quicker than most of us were, mate.
Yeah.
And today we are rounding out our coverage of Razer from Extreme 1 to Series 8.
Oh boy, this is gonna be the long haul.
Oh yeah, 32 fights and we're covering them all. Let's just get right into it with the start of the weight increase era, and we will start with their vengeance fight against longtime rivals Pussycat.
Do we need to go over this one?
Razer could have had this
We did
one.
cover it pretty recently.
In an alternate universe, they have it. Like this rivalry wasn't as one-sided as TV made it seem.
Yeah, I suppose we can let Resett get his bit in, because I think all three of the rest of us already covered it in the Pussycat episodes.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, that was terrible luck on their part. I guess they knew what was... I guess they had some foresight that it might happen, because they put it last so that they could get their streak going as long as possible. Yeah, I mean, they went on about how close Razer came to hitting something lethal.
Yeah. I think it's funny because we're covering this one first, and it was one of the first appearances Razer actually made in Extreme, but it was actually one of the last fights they filmed for Extreme.
Which is about the most extreme thing you could get in Extreme.
Yeah,
they really did never have any sort of order. Like, I swear they probably recorded a fight midway through the whole filming session, and they never released it because it just got lost in all the other shit they recorded.
Yeah, because if you actually look at the arena, you can see that it's pretty much already been repainted.
Yes.
for after the grand final. So,
oh boy.
This is actually Razer at its weakest because it's actually post Series 5 fatigue, and we know that it didn't perform as well later on. So maybe if they were completely fresh, Razer wouldn't have died so quickly. But nah, I just think that Pussycat was just the hard counter to it.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was capable of sniping Razer's wheel areas, causing it general problems. But, you know, at the same time, we did get two very interesting battles. Because the Series 4 one is obviously very unique, and it isn't much of an in-the-arena battle as such. And in this one, Razer is absolutely dominating until the KO. Like, absolutely dominating. Has Pussycat in the air, crushes into it, drives it around the arena all the time, and then swing, swoop, KO. There you go.
Yeah, all the precision in the world. Doesn't matter. If you don't even know
and also,
where
at first,
Pussycat's
Jonathan
land.
Pierce thought nothing happened in that KO attack. He was like, in comes Pussycat with swing, is there any damage? No, just sparks, I think. And it's like, but our Razer moving. Yeah, JP, they killed him, mate. Cheers, lad.
Yeah, it's an interesting, because obviously I think Mentorn were probably hoping for Razer to avenge its loss and you know, come back swinging, and then it's just like nope, we're just gonna solidify that Pussycat is the robot that beats Razer.
Yeah, it's good that it ended that way. It's good to have a robot that had a clear 100% win record against Razer as such, but
yeah,
I don't think this is
know,
exactly a rivalry that would have been as one-sided as Firestorm and Panic Attack if they had more and more fights. I do think Razer would have got its own way after one or two more fights. But...
Probably, yeah. It's certainly one that just deserves to be called a rivalry, and not just these two robots fought times, and like one of them won every single time.
Yeah, don't get me wrong though. I'm glad that the rivalry did end how it was between those two specific machines, because It's just a good part of the narrative, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know how much we love the narrative at the Robot Wars History Podcast.
Yeah, it's not the strongest of starts for Razer and Extreme, but then it enters the All Stars and it has its first fight against Gemini, and this is a bloody weird battle. It really is.
A fight that Ian Lewis recently called one of his very favourites, and you can see why. It's a unique challenge for his machine to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah, like Gemini is a very weird robot to go into the arena against, unless you're Team Tornado, in which case you just smash them both.
Yeah, you just separate one, drive that into the wall, turn around. Oh, there's another one on the arena somewhere. Smash that a bit as well.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for the simple but effective route.
It definitely shows the like unique challenge Clusterbox can pose, because Razer goes in to like attack one, and then the other one starts trying to flip him, then they gotta break off and attack the other, and then the other one comes in again.
Because Razer's never gonna be a machine that's gonna grab something and accelerate it across the arena and separate it from the other Clusterbot. It's always gonna be in very similar areas of the arena all the time. So
yeah,
not with those little tiny like plastic wheels. It's not.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it had a decent amount of drive power. It's just that was just not the way Razer fought, and it means that I think Gemini actually does better against Razer than it does against pretty much any other robot that it lost to.
yeah.
Like, it struggled more against fucking Napalm.
Yeah, the TV edit ends very abruptly, and the reason for this is actually in what we didn't see. The floor flipper fired, and Razor flew up and almost got crushed in it. And then they freed that because what the hell is the floor flipper doing firing? This isn't the 2010s. And then they started crushing into one of the Gemini arms, and the Gemini arm, which is just pure metal, Razor's not going through that. It fired and just completely burst their hydraulics. Just a bizarre ending to a bizarre fight.
Seems like it was a Storm 2 versus Supernova-esque amount of coverage that was lost in that late cut content.
Isn't there some conspiracy theorizing that like Mentorn deliberately fired the flipper so that they could disqualify Gemini somehow? Like,
I mean, like, if you believe Brian Nave, they in that Nickelodeon tag team terror, they dumped Rick out so that they could say, "Oh, that was unfair, so we'll just stop the match and judge it up to that point to make the UK win."
Well, I'm never quite sure what to make of conspiracy theories from Americans in terms of robots. It always just feels like, oh no, the UK was always out to get us because.
I mean, and especially in tag teams, like, mate, Robot Wars tag teams in general were like just stupid every single fight. So.
Yeah. Like, what are you expecting in a Robot Wars tag team if not everything going wrong? That's the entire fucking tag team.
Yeah, Razor's next fight against Behemoth. I really don't think this is a fight people would expect to be a close one, because this definitely seems like a rematch where like after their pretty close encounter in the third world, you'd think, all right, well, Razor's in like God mode now, and Behemoth's just Behemoth. So I don't think people would expect this to be as close as it is. But
I think
Behemoth's a weirdly good counter to Razor.
Yeah, I think most of any potential hope for Behemoth from people would be from the fact that the show itself just randomly hypes it up as like an all-time great during Extreme for no reason whatsoever. Just because it beats the Steel Avenger, it's apparently going to win all of Extreme, apparently.
Yeah, but you can tell that's just because, like Tornado, Behemoth was just signed up for everything because they'd already bombed out of Series 5.
I mean, they beat Hypnodisc before this. Like,
yeah,
not to say they just beat Steel Avenger.
Yeah, that is true. This is round 2. It has just taken down perhaps the most feared robot in the UK. It's gotten itself some pedigree at this point. and not just in terms of it's been here a while and it's won some. It's almost made the Heat final a few times. It made the semi-finals a few times. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's a point where Behemoth just kind of it gets Razer over time, just drives it into the wall and keeps it. And I think that might be the first time in history a long pin was used against Razer.
Which is surprising because they take a long time to self-right.
Yeah, well, their arm is like throughout the entire All Stars, their arm is like half broken. Like at the end of this and the next fight, it just straight out dies.
yeah. But yeah, and the funny thing is that Behemoth does actually immobilize Razer, but it leaves it unable to self-right. But it's too close to the end for it to actually be counted out.
Yeah, it does it at like 8 seconds.
Yeah, and it took them a very long time to make the judge's decision, but they sided in favor of Razer.
That damage category really saves Razor's hide a few times.
Yes, it definitely does, and I can understand why they weight damage so highly at this point. I think switching to weighing aggression more than damage in the reboot was a good idea, but I can see arguments for both.
So yeah, after that Razer faces Firestorm, and we really don't need to spend much time on this. This Razer versus Firestorm fight is just Razer showing it's got ground clearance and showing it's very happy to just crush something and just grind out a
I
judge's
will say
decision.
that
Lots
the
and
team
lots of
had one
holes in
funny
it.
comment on this.
I think this is probably the least interesting Razer Firestorm fight.
Yeah,
Easily.
it's got the best bit of camera work, but
It
apart
has.
from that,
that single shot of Razer lifting Firestorm up and spreading its wings is one of my favourites, if not my all-time favourite from the entire show.
yeah,
Amazing.
It always astounds me how Razer is just able to lift up about as heavy as itself on that claw, just right up.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
But sadly, apart from that,
Yeah,
it was
so
a
Ian
very
Lewis
condensed
commented
edit.
that aluminum is
Yeah.
very sticky.
Yeah, and then for the All-Star Final, it fights Tornado. A box on wheels versus Razer. How could this go? Now, one thing I want to say on this is occasionally, obviously, we'll cover their title fight later, but whenever I see people who get angry about the frame, I just think, is this what you sickos wanted a grand final fight to be?
I've always been of the same
It's one
opinion, mate.
It's one of the direst fight. I think it's one of the direst fight Razer ever has.
Yeah,
It's not the worst, but it's certainly far from good. Like it's like I understand where the people that dislike the frame come from, because I, in many ways, have not moved on from 2002. But at the same time, like, do you really want it to be the classic series equivalent of the Series 9 Grand Final, where it was a
oh, come on, mate.
No, I'm sorry, but that was a one-sided fight we already saw like 10 minutes ago.
Mate, Hypnodisc Splinter was one-sided.
with
Are
them
you
on
going to
those sentiments about
discredit
Series
that
9.
too?
No, because the Hypnodisc Splinter had like a tiny bit of tension at the start, and it's still a very entertaining destruction fight, just because Hypnodisc destruction fights always are.
Mate, Eruption got ripped
Mate,
in
that's
half.
like the only good carbide destruction fight, nearly.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I think its Series 10 fights are better. All of them.
What, even the
Sicko.
Heat final? Oof.
No,
Hot takes from
okay,
Dan.
yeah, no, not the Heat final.
Moving on, though.
That's bad. Yeah.
So yeah, Razer wins the first All Stars trophy, and yeah, it's in terms of building up to their eventual glory, it's another little epaulette to add on to their like jacket.
Yeah.
I like that epaulette.
Then it's time for Razer to defend its world championship. In its melee, it's fighting Dietor. It's fighting the Revolutionists. It's also fighting Flensburger Power.
The battle lasts about 40 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very, very condensed. There's the editing in Extreme is not amazing.
No.
I think they just wanted to get this one over with.
Yeah, like the Revolutionist is probably one of the first robots that Razer's come up against that actually poses a genuine threat to it, and then it doesn't fucking work.
Well, no, Razer just springs right for him because it recognizes it as such.
Yeah, and the thing is barely even spinning, and Razer just immediately bites through the shell, and it just stops. I mean, it damages Razer's arm to do that, but it's not going fast enough to actually cause them some
No.
threatening damage.
No. And then we get a rematch with Tornado, and Tornado's added the scoop.
Yeah,
and it doesn't do a thing for them.
So this is what you would have got if they hadn't had the frame in Series 6, because expecting Series 6 Tornado to do anything but use the scoop is an incredible task.
Oh, mate, the spike against Anarchy used against Razer, oh, that could have been a game changer.
Oh, snipes the hydraulics, that one.
Yeah, it's a slightly better fight than the previous one, but it's still not good. It's just
only because JP thinks that the scoop is the drum, but that's about it.
Is this the one where
God.
Shunt uses his axe to get Tornado off of Razor's beak?
That's in the All Stars final, yeah, but Tornado's already dead by then, from what I remember.
I mean, that was a memorable moment for me.
Yeah.
Then in the final they're fighting Drillzilla, which if it wasn't for the fact it's a shuffler bot, I'd call it the most OP box on wheels imaginable.
Yeah.
Because it's 160 kilograms and 10mm steel.
Drillzilla is probably the first walker on Robot Wars to actually make intelligent use of the weight bonus. Because like all the previous walkers, they were either stupidly complicated for no good reason, or they were just festooned with useless weapons. And then you get to Drillzilla, who was just clearly just decided they're going to make a brick shithouse of a machine and make it go fast. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And despite that, Razer completely dominates it from start to finish.
Yeah. just gets its claw into those shufflers and just pins it for like the entire fight. Like, you ain't scoring any points here, buddy. Not a thing.
No.
Yep.
I love how after Razer like has a little feel to try and see if it can do any sort of puncturing damage on Drillzilla. It understands it can't, so it just clamps and suffocates Drillzilla from that point in. But then Sakilot's like, I can cut through this, mate, and he does nothing whatsoever to Drillzilla either.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. If Razer can't get through, I really doubt Kilolot's claw's gonna.
Should have given the lance a go. It went through Wasp. Whoa.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Whenever somebody says that something is too tough for Razer to bite through, so therefore it would beat Razer, no, because they'll still just clamp on it and just like into the hazards and stuff.
Like Razer won a surprisingly large amount of fights through judges' decisions, so it certainly doesn't need to destroy them to win fights. It will just control most of them.
Yeah, though it is perfectly capable of destroying all sorts of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, Razer capped off a really good Extreme by winning the worst world championship.
Yeah,
And
it could have been better if it was edited better, but what we got was just a lot of decent moments that weren't given proper potential to them. Like the Panzer melee with Tornado was a really quite decent one. Drillzilla beating Firestorm's impressive, but we don't really ever get the full picture of anything, and it's just a bit awkward.
I still enjoy it more than the third world championship, but that's just because that's just the Storm 2 consolation prize tournament.
Yeah, Razer got kind of easy first round in that, didn't they?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure what really could have beaten it. I don't think our old friend W70 could have made much of an inroad on Razer, sadly.
No, I see. The thing is, I think if the Revolutionist had fucking worked, then that would have been a severe challenge to it. But it didn't fucking work. So...
Yeah, you can't ask a Nave bot to work. Come on.
Yeah.
So Razer caps off its Extreme and enters in Series 5, and with a surprisingly competitive fight from Big Nipper,
Yeah,
showing very early potential here.
yeah, because like the early form of Big Nipper is not amazing. Obviously, the lifter on their arms doesn't go the whole length of the body of the robot's body. It's just hinged at the front, but it's still good.
Yeah. It immediately, Big Nipper pops off a wing, which just kind of hangs awkwardly the rest of the fight. Razer spends the rest of the fight crushing him, but it's still impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's still a flat box.
It's more than a lot of All-Stars have done to Razer, so props to them.
Yeah,
It is kind of mental, though, how Big Nipper goes from these little weedy claws and pretty thin armour to absolutely impressive claws and tanky as hell armour with, like, the same amount of weight used, basically.
Yeah, but by the like this is a very different beast to what eventually turned Series 10. Like, you put these two robots next to each other, and you almost wouldn't think they're actually from the same fucking team.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, and then Razer follows this up with one of my favourite joke bots. I mean, the whole Widow's Revenge thing is. This would not have worked with any other All-Star team, because Razer's like the only team where it's all male. There's no kids. There's no like. There's no one like George Francis or Kim Davies who are just kind of like demure kind of men. It's the only team this whole thing would work with, really.
Yeah, I mean, Ian Lewis and Simon Scott have made it clear before just how much work they put into Razer as well. So you can imagine the whole them binning off their partners to go and work on Razer type thing. So it's all really good. It's great fun.
There is some actual genius in this as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people have gone back and said, okay, but why didn't they put these two up against each other in round 1? And it's just like, no. First off, Series 5 didn't actually play the interviews.
No.
It played them for the round 2 robots. So they wouldn't have gotten the Widow's Revenge interview if they didn't,
Did they know that right off the bat?
Yeah. Second off, if Widow's Revenge gets a win in round 1 to reach this point, it gets itself a little tiny bit of legitimacy that it's not just a piece of shit that's been cobbled together in 5 minutes for the sake of a joke that would probably have fit in better in Extreme 1. And if they lose, then they get to play it as a different angle of the Razer team avenging their partners instead of having to fight them.
That's nice.
I mean, let's be honest, with how Extreme was filmed, this probably was an Extreme 1 fight, and then they forgot about it and chucked it in Series 5 instead.
Oh, God. That somehow wouldn't surprise me.
We'll have to double check with Ian Lewis and co, I think.
Yeah. And after all that, this fight isn't actually terrible.
Oh, no.
As Razer Destruction fights go, it's actually one of the better ones they've had.
Oh yeah, because Widow's Revenge is built pretty shoddily, and obviously it's not an actual team that's going to go on. So Razer's not going to have any compunctions about completely wrecking the thing. So it's free to do as it pleases.
Yeah, and you got the armor plates popping out of place.
Yeah, a couple of really nice replay shots in this fight too. Yeah,
just the Matilda just shattering it.
And JP just absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Razer drives down the pit, which is perfect.
Oh, Widow's Revenge is too wide. They cheated.
There we go.
Oh yes.
So at this point, Razer probably should have fought Suicidal Tendencies, but that's a weird fight to make. 2 crushers.
Just be it'd be like second world championships level of awkwardness, wouldn't it? Just don't know what it's all about, really.
Yeah, but
instead they fight. Instead, they fight Rick, and because we have 32 fights to talk about, we're not going to talk about Razor versus Rick.
Yeah, because
We're going to skip ahead to their semi-final fight against Spawn again.
Which we won't talk about because it's completely the same as the Extreme 2 one, pretty much.
let's be fair. The most exciting thing about either of these past two fights is the part where Razor attacks the Killer Lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Spawn again is completely helpless. It's like a limp animal in Razor's jaw when it gets him. It's like when a lion bites down on something and just crushes the spine.
Yeah, yeah. Spawn again already sucked. So
Yeah, to be fair, Spawn against Spine probably would have fallen out without Razor doing anything. Let's be fair. It did in the losers melee, so
yeah. Like let's be fair. If Spawn again had flipped Razor, it would have then got the flipper stuck open. Razor would have self-fighted and just chewed up its internals without.
Mate, imagine Razor driving down the pit against Spawn again, like Spam did. That would have been utterly hilarious.
That's awful. Why would you say that?
I'm sorry.
It would then probably win the losers melee, but still, no. Speaking of losers melee, it then fights the winner of the losers melee, which is probably the cruelest thing you can do to somebody who's just had to come through an extra fight, is throw them against Razor.
Yeah, I'm sure S3 would have rather
I don't think
faced
that this
Chaos
one was
2.
as inevitable as people make it out to be. S3 is very awkward shape.
Oh yeah, the first drive they do is like a really nice, precise scoop underneath S3, so fair play to them.
Yeah, and this had the potential to be actually a very interesting fight, and then S3 gets stuck, and Razor can't dislodge it, and none of the house robots will even try. So it just
Well, they do try. I mean, Shunt fires its axe a few times to try and knock it off. It takes like half the fight to get them off.
Yeah, it is properly stuck in there.
I think this is the greatest example of what people who hate Razor think all Razor fights are, and it's not even Razor's fault.
Yeah, like maybe at this point it might have been a good idea to put some grease on the core so that it slides out easier, but then you wouldn't be able to do the lifts, and the lifts are like half the fucking point. So, yeah, it's not a great fight. The interesting thing about it though is that backstage, as if anybody who's read the Ultimate Guide and has taken the information in it on board will tell you, S3 was so banged up from this fight that it actually caught fire behind the scenes. The team walked away after and left it and didn't realize it was quietly smoldering, and then came back to find it surrounded by people with fire extinguishers.
Can we just say thank God lipos weren't invented yet?
Oh Jesus!
God, yeah.
Oh, imagine if it had caught. If it only caught fire in the arena, imagine the JP commentary.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, imagine if Razor's like the time that Razor finally is going to win the UK Championship, and the entire UK series gets cancelled because S3 blows up the building.
Oh God. So, yeah, so after a slightly awkward and perhaps a little red carpeted path to get there, Razor has finally reached the grand final. Perhaps, a few years after it really could have been there, but it's made it at last. And it has to fight Firestorm 3, who are fresh off having to rebuild the internals of their entire machine after the Hypnodisc fight. So,
how is it that the fight where Razor immediately cripples Firestorm's flipper is leaps and bounds the best, not only their best fight with Firestorm, but easily their best fight of the entire series? This fight is tremendous.
Yeah, like they start by bending the ram of Firestorm's flipper, and it's just stuck from then on.
The thing about Firestorm's shape is even when Razor gets it fully up the wedge, its wheels are still touching the ground, and it can outmuscle Razor any day.
Yeah,
so
it's got some...
a lot of this Yeah, a lot of this fight is just Razor getting a pin on them, crushing them, and then Firestorm just wallops them into a wall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and after the first attack or two, Razor really doesn't penetrate through Firestorm.
Yeah,
Like,
No.
at all.
Firestorm has got some really big chunky tires at the back end of it, and it makes great use of them in this fight.
Yeah, and then we had the point in the fight where the near typical Razor breakdown might happen when it gets stuck against the arena wall, jammed up near the angle grinder, doesn't move for a bit, and everyone's
Yeah.
wondering if it's gonna happen again.
Yeah, and after that we get yet another moment of what counts as being immobilized. Does being caught under an angle grinder count as being immobilized now? Who fucking knows?
Not when
This
it's
fight
Razer.
is absolutely close though. Like, a lot of
Yeah.
fights are made out to be very close for good reasons, but this one, it's made out to be a great fight, but it is so close because
Yeah.
Honestly, I think you could pretty easily give. I think you could give Firestorm every category except damage.
yeah, and even
You-
then,
And at that
Razor
point,
does damage at
how much are you
first,
weighing damage?
but not much past that.
Yeah,
No.
there is an argument to be made for a Firestorm 3 win here, which is kind of what you want from a good fight, really. Like, I know a lot of people will say that, you know, their favourite fights are the ones where it doesn't go to the judges, but I actually really like really close judges' decision fights.
Oh, really close judges' decision fights are like the proper identity of Robot Wars because not many machines were truly damaging enough to make enough KO fights truly worth it. So when you got to like amazing machines going right to the wire, most of the time you know it's going to have been a super tight fight with really good driving to get their weapons into play, and this is one of those.
And yeah, and the one thing we haven't mentioned is the amount of times that Razor nearly goes down the pit in this.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the two robots stuck to each other, they're just long enough that the Razor's back wheels are on the floor before Firestorm has got the front, has got them in a position to actually push them down. So they just keep driving straight across the pit throughout this fight, and it's just like, Jesus, they must have had their hearts in their throats like several different times.
Yeah, I mean there was
The
3 occasions where Razor nearly went into the pit here. It really
Yeah.
is
And
amazing.
there is one little bit of Razor adapting that I do like. Right near the end, they start using their air suspension to get Firestorm's wheels off the ground, and nice little bit of adapting.
Yeah.
yeah.
Always those little specifics that Ian and Simon were so good at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's very telling that this is one of those fights where the judges have to actually personally inspect the machines.
Yeah.
And yeah, the next fight, the grand final, is pretty famously a massive downer.
Yeah,
After 3 absolutely amazing fights, we get I think it genuinely is the worst grand final fight.
I disagree there, as I've said already. I think there are some that are distinctly worse, but it's an epilogue rather than a big finish.
Mm.
Like, Bigger Brother has beaten Chaos 2. It has survived Hypnodisc. It and now it's up against the last member of the big 3, and it has just run out. There is nothing left to give.
I mean, it's not a bot that was going to trouble Razor here anyway, but Razor doesn't even get any nice crushes. It gets these just awkward little digs in right at the base of Bigger Brother's wedge.
I mean,
it's just a boring fight.
Bigger Brother has some, as we've learned from the last fight, Bigger Brother has some incredibly durable armor.
Yeah, this fight is kind of like, you guys know the American film Miracle?
No.
Oh, it's about the 1980 hockey team at the Olympics, and it's kind of like this in that their big confrontation with Russia is the penultimate fight, and then their match with, and like basically winning that, movie's over, and then the narrator says, "Oh, as an afterthought, we also won the final." Cool.
Yeah, it's a dull fight, but it's a necessary one.
Or-
Razor needed to win the grand final in this series. Anything longer, and it would have hit the whole build up of potential. If they'd fought Hypnodisc or something and gotten KO'd, it just would. The Razor Bloom would have just it would have been like a balloon deflating.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to care. It'd be hard to care about them winning Series 6 or whatever.
Especially after they were so good in Extreme as well. If they then went on to bottle Series 5, it would have been pretty a pretty big come down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much are we going to talk about Extreme Warriors?
Well, it does have one important fight.
Oh yeah.
I love the fight against Cat 3. Oh man.
I can't get me that easily. But there is one weird thing about the fight with Cat 3. In the intro, you can very clearly hear someone's like a crowd singing "Happy Birthday" in the background.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess it was somebody's birthday at the filming.
Brilliant insight from Dan.
Conquering clown team.
Hell of a birthday
right
present, to
into
be
it.
fair. Happy birthday, we're taking you to Robot Wars.
Yeah, but what about if you watched like Warhog v Napalm?
You still got to go to Robot Wars.
I guess. And if you got a signature from David Crosby or something, then 10 times better. So
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah. But no, their Extreme Warriors fight, it sees the first introduction of the cage.
Oh boy. So the cage is completely legal.
It's legal. It's fine. It's good. The cage is good. We love the cage, don't we, folks?
I approve of the cage. I don't love the cage.
Oh, I do. I absolutely love the frame.
That's all.
Actually, to be fair, I think if this is this is as far as the cage ever got, I'd probably be very much happier with it. It's just that it gets bigger.
I think that's why I don't get bored of these free fights, obviously because they're all very different and we didn't even see one of them for years. But in this fight, the cage is kind of a bit small and Razor can still get in at it. In Series 6, Razor doesn't have the right attachment. And in Extreme 2, it does, but it shits itself. So, every fight's got something to it.
Yeah, this is it's a controversial one. And it's not because of the whole, did Tornado cheat? But this is a fight that Razor, by all accounts, wins, and then the judges just make the complete wrong call. And a bit of debris that was probably Tornado's weapon motor was actually Razor's wheels.
Was Jonathan Pierce on the judges panel for this fight, do we think? Would surprise me.
He must have been.
No. I think we've just established by now that Noel's just fucking blind.
Yeah, no. Sharky, I think if I remember correctly, he did say this was the worst call he ever made as a judge. Because he did identify what was probably Tornado's spinner motor as one of Razor's drive motors. Which I mean, have you seen that thing cannot fit? That thing would be like, I don't know, the main driver of the hydraulic.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's too big to be a bloody. Imagine trying to fit 4 of those in Razor.
The US commentator Stefan Frank even said that Razor, is just so enclosed that he himself thought immediately it came out of Tornado 2. So.
Yeah. I this is obviously the inherent problem of they are situated quite far back from the arena. And they don't have time to go and look at the robots after every fight.
I mean, thank goodness it happened in this one, because I think this is probably the least consequential one. Neither of these bots needed this tournament on their records anyway. It makes no difference, really. It's a side tournament and a side series.
Yeah, especially to the UK audience. Like, only the diehards are going to find this fight.
Yeah. I am glad that we didn't get something like this during one of their fights that actually mattered.
Imagine in the title fight.
Oh, just add even more to that fight. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So Razor enter Series 6, finally a champion, and as is the right of a champion, it gets a very nice heat to coast on.
Yeah.
Razor did make one notable change. it added that little etching in the wedge, and I'm personally not a big fan because it looks like a symbol someone would have in like an Xbox Live avatar in 2008.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Oh dear, Ian Lewis ahead of the train again.
Yep.
And after such a after us being used to, especially in Series 5, Razer having, quite a few dud fights, it starts off with a very, very fun one. And I don't say that as a Brutus Maximus fanboy, obviously not.
Oh, the Brutus! I mean, Brutus Maximus's contributions are great here. I am a fellow Brutus son.
That's sad.
Oh.
Yeah, so we've got Brutus Maximus, Wasp, and Raging Reality.
Christ. And in Razer's champion series, Brutus Maximus is the first machine out into the arena, mate.
Yeah, they've got a millimeter of top armor combined.
Pretty much.
Yeah. They just that's how the producers chose the robots for this heat. They just went around and found ones with really thin top armor.
I mean, when Razer fights Brutus, it's comical when they attack them because they literally just rip off the entire side.
Yeah.
It's it's a particularly easy fight for them to begin with. Fun, but not by any means challenging.
No, it's like the perfect series opener, though, isn't it? Just have the champion do whatever they want without even needing to try, and it's still being fun.
Yeah. Though I will say that the best first episode of any Robot Wars is probably still Series 7, but
Nah, we'll get to that in the Shell Shock podcast, mate. Don't you worry.
Yeah. And then we have the fight where everyone freaks out because a robot manages to flip Razer wand. This is how OP Razer is. Imagine anyone freaking out because someone got a flip on Hypnodisc.
To be honest, mate, I thought you were going to say everyone freaks out because Mr. Psycho damages a light bulb on top of Cyrax, but yes, that works too.
Some of the most visible damage that Mr. Psycho ever did.
Yeah. Cyrax gets this one little tip on Razer after Razer spends an entire fight just poking holes in them, and yeah, it's like a moment. It is like a notable moment.
Yeah, but this fight is much more interesting for it being. I think it is the first appearance of Mr. Psycho and Growler, and Mr. Psycho is just bigger, kill a lot, but worse. But Growler is probably the best house robot they ever had. So,
why didn't they put these two in the first melee? It was already mental enough. Why not just chuck them two in there as well for the hell of it?
Oh god! Imagine what Growler could have done to Brutus.
Actually,
Maximus.
No, thanks guys for putting them in this fight instead.
Psycho's hammer and plus Wasp. That's something Psycho's hammer can actually damage.
Yeah. You know, I always thought Wasp was invertebrate for some reason.
I mean, why not?
Good.
A wasp is an invertebrate, and they got the same stripe.
They were weirdly similar looking to me, whose only regular image of invertebrate was on the fucking battle cards for Series 4.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, I can see why that happened.
Yeah, I think I think Growler's the best house robot because Matilda was more effective, but I think she was so effective in most of the series that she started becoming too powerful. She would often just outright kill robots or immobilize things that she had no business doing that.
Well, I mean, Matilda plays a part in the next fight against Raging Reality.
Yeah.
I think.
Would you guys have preferred to see Razer against Tetanus as opposed to Cyrax?
Nah.
Just curious.
That just sounds awkward.
Yeah, that would have been
Tetanus is this massive long shape with nothing to
Yeah,
cushion.
that would have been a
it'd just
fight
be
where
Razor getting.
Razor won it, but it really wouldn't have been very appealing, I don't think.
Yeah.
Tetanus
Fair.
would have been competitive to some definition, but I doubt it would have been able to do that much offensively.
Yeah, I think they were anticipating Weldor going through. That would have been an ideal opponent for Razor.
Oh, the fight we should have gotten in the first world.
Yeah, well, you know, if Weldor beat 101, it could have been dreams come true.
Oh,
Yeah.
so yeah, Razor fights Virgin Reality, and yeah, I think this era is it's what I'd call Razor's imperial phase, and it is where Razor has become more content to just grind out a fight, but they still show a bit of fun here.
Yeah,
They feed them
exactly.
into Matilda.
Matilda literally
Yeah.
just waits there, and Razor slowly edges it onto the flywheel,
Oh,
and then
to
bang!
be fair, if you were the person driving Matilda, would you want to sit there and go, well, they were driving Raging Reality towards me, and then I reversed and tore Razor's fucking beak off.
Well, I mean, after there must have been some flashbacks to when Matilda damaged Firestorm against Rohog. There, Rohog Decapitator there. Then you just rip Razor's claw
just like,
straight off.
and to be fair, like in the context of these obviously they all always tried to pretend that the house robots were characters, like they had minds of their own and all that, and that was why they just let the house roboteers do things like just stroll out of their CPZs and mill around in the arena and kill robots. But you know, in the context of Matilda being a character, would you want to get intentionally that close to Razor after the Southern Annihilator?
I mean, that is very true.
I mean, I think this fight does have a good example of Razor's control though, because like Razor just is easily able to get its claw wherever it wants, and it just targets Raging Reality's wheel hubs and just always get them. And like it can't be overstated enough. Like modern day robot combat, most of the time they're fighting next to a cage, eye level with the robot.
Oh yeah.
In Robot Wars, they were always like a couple of feet up and a lot of feet away.
The amount of times you'd see those really awkward camera shots when both the machines were right near the arena entry gates, and the roboteers had to like crook their neck over at like a really awkward angle to have any chance of seeing what was happening. And Ian and Simon were just like, right, you know, we'll just take out the gearbox of Danton Kier in our next fight then.
Yeah. Just completely completely OP drivers,
And
honestly.
they have some fun with Raging Reality at the end of the fight. After they've had Matilda just rip it apart, they just leave it on the pit, and it can't move. They
The
leave
classic,
it
yeah.
Yeah, just push the button so it descends, which is just brilliant. Like they're clearly, you know, they're in more serious mode now, but they'll still have a bit of fun when they've secured the victory.
Yeah. And so Razor makes it through to the semi-final. I don't think anyone doubted they would.
No.
And they are up against Wild Thing 2. And oh boy. What a fight.
Such a weird robot.
Yeah. Well, weird's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
I'd have less kind things to say, but I've already said them.
No, I kind of like it, but yeah, it's certainly not the best. But then I think the best Wild Thing is the Series 4 one, so yeah.
That's probably
there are
true.
there's some cool attacks here. There's the when they prise off a panel is pretty gross.
Yeah, like they give you an idea of just like what this robot is doing to things. Is just tearing things apart. Like I didn't quite get the right impression of how Razer worked until I actually heard it without BBC sound editing. And when you hear the claw moving, you get a sense of, oh shit, that's scary stuff. But yeah, it gets another brilliant lift in this fight, which you know, always fun.
Yep. Then it fights Dantum Kia, and Dantum Kia is really not in good shape for fighting Razor because it's a long side and a big space in between its prongs for it to just slide right
Yeah,
under.
it makes it so Danton Kier has basically no chance of a flip but it also means it wedges under it at specific enough angles on like 2 occasions where it can drive Razer back a bit. But apart from that, it's complete domination.
Yeah, like this is the second time that Razer gets matched up against the robot that came through the loser's melee, which it's like that's a weird choice, isn't it? Like the first time it's just like, wow, we're just gonna be a dick to S3, and then this time it's more along the lines of, why are you putting the robot that came out of the fucking champion?
I mean, the only other alternative is a rematch, so
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, and Razer doesn't help itself in terms of fight enjoyability in its next fight against Terahertz, but here it's just they're plain damn scared of it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, to be fair, in terms of robots to be scared of, at this point in the UK competition, Razer's up there.
Oh no, I mean Terahertz. They're
Ah.
damn scared of this thing because I mean a strong. They've seen how hard. I mean Terahertz makes Dominator 2 look like Sergeant. Looks like bloody Backstabber.
I was going to say, mate, the Sergeant Meekle slander on this podcast is constant. Can we choose something else, please?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean a strong blow. You get a strong enough combo of blows from Terahertz could easily have knocked out the Claw or just the bot itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Terahertz is like I just said that like Razer is a fucking scary machine, and it is. But Terahertz is probably the scariest.
Visually, yeah, the way it just smacks about, especially in Series 6.
Yeah, it looks like it has absolutely no control. And yeah, I really this fight is one that I barely remember,
There's not much.
even though I've seen it like 3 times now.
There's not a lot to remember. Razer going for the quickest pitting it possibly could.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I suppose at
thank
this
you.
point you're in the grand final. You're looking, they're chasing that second title now.
Oh yeah, I mean one hit could like just warp the claw completely out of alignment.
Yeah, and
But thankfully, beautifully standing in the way of that second title is Big Frame Tornado. Let's
oh
go.
boy, like I will say, like, if my opinion on this fight has shifted a bit since Series 10, because now that we're in a position where Chaos 2 is the only robot that ever got more than one title, I'm perfectly happy for that to stay the case. If Carbide had got a second title, I would have wanted a Razer double championship.
The thing I like most about this is Tornado is giving Razer their own medicine. Razer at this point has just crushed the hopes and dreams of so many bots for like an entire fight. And then when Tornado gets them wedged into the wall and just slams them repeatedly, it's like, here you go, how does it feel? Have a taste of your own damn
Yeah,
medicine.
I always laugh during that spell of Tornado slams into the arena wall when you can just hear grown men in the crowd going "way" for every single Tornado slam. Like, it's so awful. I love it.
Yeah, as a Rambot driver myself, I've really come to appreciate that.
When you hear that, I just imagine a bunch of bald 50-year-old football lads just like
mate, they bet 20 quid on Tornado to take the title fight. He was saying to his friend all week, I think Tornado's going to put the cage on for this fight, mate. And and then when it all comes true and Tornado's dominating, Baz thinks he's got the 20 quid all sewn up.
That implies that anybody in England in 2002 had seen Extreme Warriors.
Oh mate, don't deny Baz's inside knowledge on robot wars in foreign countries. He knows everything.
This is I think this is probably my favorite Razer fight. Probably my favorite title fight as well. No, definitely favorite title fight.
Wow,
it's brilliant.
It's decent, but
decent. Oh, damn.
Like, no, I'm sorry. I have a strong dislike of Rambots, so yeah, I'm never gonna give a Rambot fight a high praise.
I mean, it's more of a rectangle Rambot than like an actual it's a frame Rambot. It's not exactly all torque or
Yeah, but
tornado,
but like
normal or Storm 2.
yeah, but it's still just driving into stuff. Like the spinner on this thing is fucking useless. So...
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was,
Razer tanks that. Razer breaks that bound at time. It could have handled Hypnodisc.
Yeah,
yeah, it's
definitely.
funny how like the frame is so deformed from all that ramming that the blade can't even spin at the end.
Mm.
Like you see the judges inspecting it for damage, and one of them tries to move the blade, and it's just rubbing up against the main
Yeah.
tornado body.
What is funny though is that technically Razor must have damage for this fight.
Oh
It
yeah.
must have damage. Like
Technically, yeah.
like so
Razor does take a hell of a lot of punishment though. You can see
yeah.
the one of its side pods, like because Razor's obviously is protected by two really big panels on each side, and one of those panels is literally lifting up from where it's bolted in because Tornado is just slamming it so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would agree with Dan on its quality if it had just been the ramming.
Yeah.
But what brings this fight over is, of course, Razor recovers. It gets them lifted up and gets them over the pit, and they're just suspended there. And it's like at that moment was birthed like nearly 20 years
Oh,
of
it's the
continuing argument.
perfect moment. Yeah.
It's the most infamous fight in robot combat history by a mile.
Mm. Yes, that's certainly the case. I mean, it's oh god, it's amazing because I think what is stopping Tornado from going down is actually Razor's own beak attachment.
Yeah, I mean, all they'd
Yeah,
need to
well,
do
Oh,
is
definitely, 100%.
all they'd need to do is to have left Tornado suspended over the pit, and that would have been the KO.
Yeah,
But
but the frame is caught
yeah,
on the
well, I mean, they had all of 2 seconds to reposition it precisely. Even Ian and Simon
yeah.
are going to have a long shot of doing that.
yeah, and yeah, and that's the end of Razor's tenure as champion of Robot Wars.
Yep. And it's yeah, I think we've covered that fighting pretty extensively.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, Razor returns for Extreme 2 with a whole lot of new upgrades inside and the same motors probably
Oh,
since
mate, you've forgotten about
1998.
the biggest
yeah.
upgrade. Ian Lewis shaving Razor into his hair,
Oh,
mate.
I love it. I love
You
that.
just gotta love it, haven't you? Just the full on.
Yeah.
He's just gone there, full in. No shits
Fucking
given.
hell.
You love it.
People doing weird things with their appearance for relating to their robots is always entertaining.
Yeah. And Razor's first appearance is in the All Stars Melee. And in retrospect, really, really, really wish they had just gone whole hog and made it Razor Hypno Chaos
Oh,
2.
absolutely.
Now that we know that all three just never appeared after this series, man,
Yeah.
they could have given us that much.
Yeah, I mean, especially
Yeah.
after Hypnodisc had dropped off slightly in Series 6, Chaos 2 hadn't even made the semis. Like, you really do have to just. You never know if those three competed in Series 7 and, say, the All Stars tournament for Series 7 was still, semi finalists up type qualification. You don't know if these three would ever be in the same tournament ever again anyway, so.
Yeah, it's
like,
pretty. Yeah, I mean, especially if they wanted to make that Razor Hypno super fight. At this point, they've got to realize Hypnodisc isn't fighting its way through several semi-finalists. It's just not anymore.
no, which is a shame because I mean it's still a good robot, but it's gradually getting left behind.
Yeah.
As
Compared to the rest of the
a,
elite, yeah.
well, I mean, a lot of the rest of the so-called elite were already bottoming out as well.
Yeah, it's of the old guard. It is really just Razor and Firestorm keeping it alive at this point,
Pretty much, yeah.
and I guess Dominator too, if you want to count them.
And this is also their last appearance as well.
Yeah, as it
Yeah.
is, the fight we get is okay though. It's fine.
Yeah, it's this the Extreme 2 All Stars. It's just the Series 6 semi-finalists, but with Wild Thing replaced with Chaos 2, which is interesting.
It's
It's certainly not what I'd call an all-stars.
well, as we just covered, it was probably a good thing. I'd rather have this than, I don't know, Panic Attack, Pussycat, and Deator trying to duke it out like they've still got it.
Yeah, I mean, Pussycat does go on to some good things, but
Not in this series.
yeah, not really yet. But yeah, this is it's actually quite a scary one for both of the actual All Stars here, because both of them have got shit armor and they're against a spinner.
Well, yeah, at one point, 13 Black tears off a wing, and God bless Chaos 2. If they hadn't had their face ripped open, they could have completed a flip and just taken out. Imagine Chaos 2 taking out Razor in Extreme.
That one
2.
point where Razer is absolutely flush onto Chaos 2's flipper, but the panels just broke. So all George can do is drive them around in a circle, and then it cuts to a replay, and then Chaos 2 gets killed a few seconds later.
Yeah, it's almost written off in this fight.
Yeah.
Even if George hadn't joined the technical team for Series 7, I'm not sure if he would have been able to get it back into proper fighting condition.
I think as he acknowledges in the interview, Chaos 2 is done. That thing that thing's finally that thing's gone into the ring with Father Time and been KO'd.
Yeah. Just imagine though if I don't know, Hypnodisc faced Chaos 2 in Series 4 Grand Final, absolutely ruined it, and then George could never repair it because he didn't have enough money, and Chaos 2's gone within a couple of series. Sorry.
That's depressing.
Yeah,
Stop.
Sorry.
That would have been a fucking amazing narrative for Hypnodisc, though.
Oh god, retire the robot that beat you the previous series. Oh god.
Oh yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think we've just made Toon Ganondorf very happy.
Yeah, and then Razor goes up against Spawn again, and I mean the only difference here is that Spawn again's now got armor that's Razer.
Yeah.
I think at this point Razor's really starting to hit the limits of what its hydraulics can do, because it can't pierce Spawn again really.
Yeah.
Yeah. The difference between this fight and the previous one is that Spawn again is no longer a piece of shit.
Wow.
Still not amazing, but it's not.
Yeah, it finally has defensive capabilities in this particular matchup, but it's never gonna wedge under Razer, and it flips itself in the pit, which doesn't help either.
Yeah, this is a robot that now has actually earned its place here, rather than being a robot that got where it did because the robot that was supposed to win its heat was beaten by Deator.
When it does fight 13 Black, 13 Black's a good shape for taking on Razer because it's hard to get near it without getting sliced up.
Yeah, and Razer does take a bit of a beating in this fight, but unlike the previous round where 13 Black was able to kind of have some fun, it now has Razer's full attention. There's no Chaos 2 here to even things out a bit.
Well, it's doing just fine until it gets stuck into the wall.
Yeah, it's just an interesting watch really, because Razer has to take quite a few hits, and it does withstand them well.
Yeah, and 13 Black has at this juncture beaten Dominator 2.
So, well, Matilda beats Dominator 2.
It did some damage of its own. It got in there. It's certainly become a machine worthy of some real respect at this point. And yeah, so it's like beforehand it's just like it just changes the perspective on the whole thing, because at the start of this tournament you look at 13 Black being in the arena with Chaos 2 and Razer, and it's just like, what the fuck is this thing doing here? Like, it does not belong. And then now it's partially responsible for writing off Chaos 2. It's made it through a fight with Dominator. Now it actually feels like it belongs here.
Yeah, it's a good showing from a bot that that 2 series ago got KO'd by a non-spinning corkscrew.
Yeah.
And then Razer has...
Cool.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say that 13 Black is also just plain cool.
It is.
Yeah.
And then Razer has the rematch that absolutely nobody wanted against Firestorm. The most significant thing you can say is Firestorm gets under Razer once. That just says it all.
Yeah. It's the infamous steel strip.
Yeah, I mean everybody from that heat of All Stars, Razor has already beat, right?
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I don't
yeah,
think
at some point or another.
I don't think it hadn't fought 13 Black yet.
Well,
No,
in the
Oh,
in the
I
other
see.
heat, yeah, because beat Bigger Brother, beat S3, beat Tornado, beat Terahertz, beat Danton Gear. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. It's gonna be a grudge no matter
Yeah, I
what.
mean the one that
But
you'd
since
say
it's
would have been the
disappointing.
most potentially fresh seeming would have been a match against Bigger Brother where Bigger Brother was actually in functional condition, but yeah, you'd
Yeah.
fancy it against everything.
Yeah.
Like Firestorm is the closest to an actual challenge it has here. Um,
You don't think Tornado?
I mean, obviously it would have been up there,
well,
but
we're gonna get to the tornado rematch very shortly, but we already know they had a they had something that did let them beat Tornado,
Yeah.
so we'll have to get to that.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
least this one didn't end Razor versus Tornado.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Razer wins the second All Stars, and then it goes into the Europeans. And its first fight is quite notable because it's the former UK champion versus the Dutch champion Pulverizer.
Yeah, this is the European Championship is like I'm glad they were able to bring in a bunch of robots that had actually
yeah,
won
it
the
was a
series.
pretty
Oh,
solid lineup
100%.
overall, really. And you've even got Philippa in there, which is always a fine machine to have in the lineup.
I'm legitimately sure that I think the worst thing here was actually the Italian entry. So
Yeah. Well.
But it is what it
Yeah.
is. Like at least it's not gonna clog up most of the spaces in the episode. Like there is genuinely good things in here too.
uh, which is kind of a rarity for Extreme 2.
It had its off moments, yes.
It had its off episodes.
Yes. It had its off tournaments, yes.
Oh
The,
god.
the the fight is probably as you'd expect, given how well. I mean, Pulverizer's shaped a lot like S3, and we saw how that went.
Yeah.
Pulverizer gets in one good hit that Razor looks like dizzy after it lands it,
Yeah.
and then Pulverizer drives into the pit.
Pulverizer was always that machine that gave you a good hit or two in a fight, but it never truly got going. Even in the series, it won, and even here, yeah, it can deliver a hit or two, and you think if that can work the whole fight really well, it can be a threat. But yeah, Razor just absolutely dominates it for the most part.
Yeah, it's against that, and that's why I say like Razor does so much better against verts than it would against any horizontal.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily fancy it against Magnetar, mind, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it ain't gonna win that one.
I'm sure we can find. Oh, I'm sure we can find. We'll be able to find someone who we could probably find a lot of people who think Razor can beat
Well, I
Magnetar.
mean, after some of the Reddit votes we've seen in recent months, such as yes, the viewing audience here, there has been some interesting ones, such as Firestorm absolutely romping it against Apollo, and what was one of the other ones? I can't remember. I don't want to remember, but yeah, go look on Reddit if you want to see some
You get
meme
the
votes.
gist. You get
Yeah.
the gist.
We're gonna get me some Class B amnestics.
And then, so yeah, Razor has its next fight against Tornado. I mean, these guys had to fight each other more than any other bot in Robot Wars did. They have like 5 fights,
Yeah, they do.
and thankfully, it is a genuine rival. It's not like Firestorm versus Panic Attack where they just fight. They just happen to keep fighting, and Firestorm romps it near
Yeah.
every time. No, it's Razor. Yeah, the final fight against Tornado. Razor has fully figured out the cage at this
Oh,
point.
the new hook attachment is so good. I love how it looks.
Yeah, it's really cool looking.
Yeah, and
And it kind of goes back to what we were saying way back in part 1 with its fight against Technolease. It can be a lifter.
Yeah, at the other end of the machine this time.
Nick, I remember you saying in a discussion on the wiki ranking the best bots 36 Extreme 2 that this really shows just how brilliant a design Razer was. The other top robot in the UK has to make an entire attachment specifically to fight them, and then Razer adds on a bit of metal and they
just a little bit of
it.
metal, yeah, and there goes your entire however many kilograms attachment you've worked on for months and months and months. They're just like, right, we'll get a fishing hook, put that on the end, that'll sort you.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate then that Razer's motors burn out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like the reliability factor just comes back into play one last time.
Yeah, and this one was even more unfortunately, it led to a massive dispute in the team that that was most likely the reason they didn't enter Series 7.
It's been suggested that there's a lot of theories as to why Razer wasn't in Series 7.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Some people say they were just taking a series off, like with like Hypnodisc were supposedly doing. Like there are some saying that they were running the Claw at illegal pressures, and Series 5 were and Channel 5 were more stringent about that than the BBC were. So they
I'm sure Channel 5 told their biggest moneymaker, get out. Definitely. They would not. There's no way they would have turned a blind eye.
The theory isn't that they got disqualified. The theory is that they chose not to enter so they wouldn't get caught. But the one that gets passed around most is that they argued so much over whether it was the right thing for them to concede a victory they were given for this fight, that the team split and didn't get back together until after Robot Wars was dead.
I think it's just
it's
hard to confirm either way, but it does sound like a thing of like general fatigue, and a natural break was potentially needed at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading on the FRA forums like way back. Ian was saying that like now that Razer's won just about everything, that he'd rather have it as a display piece. It's just not worth his time and money anymore.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Stuff. I mean, what is there for Razer?
Stuff like he'd continue to trot it out for like displays and stuff, but that he was done with the fighting portion.
Yeah, and I think rounding off of this final fight, if we rack up the Razer versus Tornado win sheet, you've got two solid Razer wins. You've got one fight that even the judges acknowledged should have been a Razer win. You've got an unambiguous Tornado win. You've got a Razer win that then the team figured Tornado should have had. So overall,
which they were right to do.
I do agree with that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It should have been like they separate, and then it's like both robots. Can you even move anymore? And Tornado says yes. Razer says no. Okay.
But overall, what you got there? 3-2. Razer wins this rivalry.
Yeah, but in terms of the actual series record, Tornado wins. But in terms of
it's a moral victory.
It's like it's looking at what actually happened. Then we can overturn the Extreme Warriors.
Going by the series record, Cat 3 has a win over Firestorm.
Yeah, that is a very good point, and that is
So we were just discussing Series 7, and I think what we should do is kind of see how we back Razer against essentially the cream of the crop of Series 7. So we'll just do a quick fire round again. We'll just do a quick fire round of Razer versus the semi-finalists of Series 7 and see what we come up with. So we'll start with semi-final 1. Razer versus Tornado again.
Oh.
Well, we've just, I think, I'm not sure Tornado could find another way to upgrade the cage to counter the hook.
I think the cage was outlawed by now anyway.
It was actually, yes.
Oh yeah.
It was.
They did ban the cage, so yeah, no, we're back to Extreme 1 levels here.
Yeah, Razer was saying that if they fought the cage again, they'd try to throw it out of the arena instead of going for the pit.
God, a Crusher Uta, that would be amazing.
Blimey.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
so
not sure they could, but it's
no.
a thought.
Okay, so Razor wins against Raging Nightmare.
Yeah,
Oh, easily.
Yep. Against Dantum Kia again.
yeah, Razor wins that one.
Against Gravity.
Now that's actually
I
the
don't know.
interesting one we've got.
I mean, we said that Gemini wrecked Razor's claw by firing into it.
Yeah, but Gemini was also using a solid metal flipping arm, whereas Gravity's made of polycarbonate. Like Razor's claw will probably go through Gravity pretty much anywhere on the machine.
Yeah, it is a very awkward machine to get a true full grip on because it's so long and it's got big tyres, so it can scoot around well. Razor would probably get onto it at some point, but you know, if Gravity did get it over early on, I definitely wouldn't rule it out following through and getting it in big
It's a
trouble.
fight that could go either way, but I think the key is Gravity wheelies.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
And Razor is made of ground scraping.
I was going to say, Razor's made of ground clearance. All right, mate.
No, definitely not ground clearance. It's made of getting underground clearance.
Yes,
So,
that's important
I'll give this
stuff.
one to Razor, but I could see it going the other way quite easily.
Okay, Razor wins. Exterminator.
Now this is interesting.
It reminds me of like Terahertz in the concept of it, where it's a very narrow weapon for attack range the opponent has, but it's a very violent weapon. But at the same time, around that weapon, there's so much bulk that Razor can get a hold of. So, I don't know, Razor would have to be careful because the sides themselves are very tall and slopey. So it would probably need to get in more around the front area. But I do think at some point it would probably get its way.
It will probably lose a wing, I reckon, but I think it would probably just hug Exterminator to death.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily fancy Exterminator to come in with an opportunistic swivel on the turn like Pussycat did, for example.
Yeah.
It wasn't that type of machine.
I'm voting nay. I don't care. I'm being the maverick here, I guess. I think Exterminator is going to get that lethal hit in, even if it's not spectacular. It'll be enough to cripple Razor.
It definitely has enough damage potential to do something nasty, yeah.
Yeah. It's a fair shout. Again, it's not a clear-cut win for anyone, I think.
I think
I'll
so.
say that scoop was really good in front. Like, that thing was a flipper killer. I'm talking about Exterminator, I mean.
So I think that's a majority Razor then.
Yeah, I think so.
I suppose so.
Saint Aggro?
Yeah, Razor's gonna
yeah,
win
they're
that.
getting that one. They just
Yep.
got to get the body instead of the flippers, and it's over.
Bulldog breed?
Razor easily.
Yeah.
Another interesting one, Tough as Nails.
I'm gonna swing for Razor on this one. We had this discussion a lot during the days of fantasy tournaments, but pretty much all of Tough as Nails' crushing power comes from a big exposed piston at the back of it that's just in the perfect place for Razor to fight down if they go into each other head.
Yeah, I mean, even if they do go head to head, I really see Tough as Nails struggling to like turn Razor into a danger area. I think Tough as Nails would more keep it as a headlock, whereas Razor would be more easily able to dictate certain drives into CPZs, and you know, maybe a shunt hit on Tough as Nails or two would be enough to take the judge's decision. I think it would be rather comfortable in reality for how much Razor could control the fight, but in terms of damage, there wouldn't be anything that either could really do.
Yeah, I think it would be not as easy as it sounds to get a hold of Tough as Nails, but I think it would be a hug fest.
Yeah, I mean, Tough as Nails needs to get in close itself to do anything to Razor, so it would be awkward for either of them to truly get that upper hand, but I just think Razor's rounded enough to do it.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to semi-final 2. We've got Quadrology now versus Firestorm.
Yeah, no, Razor's
Yeah,
gonna
nothing's
take
gonna
that, yeah.
change.
Firestorm voluntarily dives into the pit like the All-Stars because it's had enough.
Yeah, like I'm not doing this crap again.
Razer versus Mute.
That is awkward, genuinely awkward, because Mute is such a small, awkward brick, and it genuinely does have really good ground clearance as well.
Yeah, I think it would. I think Razor would win, but it would be
It would
like
be one of those where Razer has to accept a controlling win rather than pure domination. It would have to smother
Yeah.
Mute rather than completely tear it open, I think.
yeah, Razor wins on account of the fact that Mute is like just bouncing itself around the arena again.
I'm just imagining Razer starts crushing on that panel, and then they fire it with their stupid power and just bust Razer's hydraulics again.
Oh yeah.
Are we actually going to come to the conclusion that Razor beats Exterminator but loses to Mute?
We could. We going majority Razer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Razor.
I'm leaning Razor, but again,
It would be very awkward, but yeah.
I'm loving the idea of a Mute win there. I am enjoying that.
Okay, Razer versus Thermidor 2.
Razor win.
Easily.
Razer versus Typhoon 2.
No.
Yeah, Typhoon
Not a
slaughters
chance.
it. Like that's not even a close fight. Typhoon's got that one in the bag.
Yeah. Okay. Razer versus Storm 2.
I'm gonna go Razor on that one. It's very good at chewing up Rambots.
I think it would be yeah, I think I've backed Razer in this fight when it's happened in like fantasy tournaments before. And although obviously Storm 2 is much lower than Drillzilla, I think it's going to be one of those type of fights where Razer can't exactly crumple down and kill it, because it can't. It won't get through Storm 2. But I do fancy it to be able to get underneath it enough. I think Storm 2 will probably be reckless at times, and it will shoot up Razor's wedge and trying to accelerate it around the arena. So... And also, if Storm 2's wheels go off the ground, they're not going to get any traction.
Well, no, I mean Storm 2. Its scoop isn't that much better than Tornado. Like Tornado does get under them at times when they're fighting, even if Storm 2 does get the majority of them.
The main advantage Storm 2 has against Tornado in that fight is that it gets Tornado over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, Razer is definitely better than the Scoop, so I reckon they're definitely better than Storm 2. Even if Storm 2 gets under them, the most it's going to do is it's going to ram Razer into a wall. If Razer gets under them, that's 30 seconds of time where Storm 2's going to score no points.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like if it can get Storm 2 against the wall during those 30 seconds and reposition, it's just going to start chewing up the wheels.
Yeah, so majority Razer, the Grim Reaper.
Oh boy. Oh, I do like the Grim Reaper's ability to make some fights really interesting with how it's a machine that's not really ever going to KO anything, but it's also always going to be a factor. But not in this fight, it's not going to be. That is such a lovely body to chew up.
I like the Grim Reaper, but it ain't winning this one.
Okay, so
Long shot.
Razer versus Atomic.
Now we're back to an
one. Yeah, this is the one I was saying before the podcast.
It's like it's against a more developed Behemoth, because that's such a big front scoop. But it also has actual flipper power to it instead of lifting power. And Atomic is very fast and can skid steer by this point in time. It's very interesting.
Yeah, if Atomic can get a flip, it'll probably keep the pressure up and get Razer out of the arena.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Some of the Atomic hype does come from the fact that we only saw the Series 7 version in such a small amount of fights. But I also do rate it high enough where I do think it could take a fight like this when it plays at its best.
Yeah, I think it's not as tall as Behemoth at the side, so Razer could get it would be easier for Razer to get a bite on it if it could get into a good position.
Yeah, Atomic's more boxed in though, isn't it? Because Behemoth has, its 6-wheel drive pods at the side, which Razer always got in and just chewed away at, whereas Atomic's more boxy and centralized. So
Yeah, I am leaning Atomic at this point because
I think I'd be happy to.
Yeah, they're going to be ruthless. They're not going to give it room to self-riot like Gemini and a couple others did.
yeah, it's taking the things that made Behemoth such a good matchup against Razer and accelerating them to the
Yeah.
point that it's almost a hard counter.
Yeah, I think as well. Again, militating against Razor getting sides as Atomic is very
It is.
fast.
It's incredibly
Yeah,
fast.
So
it is.
Razor will have a trouble even getting there. So yeah, Atomic wins it seems. And finally, M2
Oh, mate, what about
Rather
Tsunami as well?
anticlimactic.
semi-finalists only. Semi-finalists only.
Yeah, we're talking semi-finalists.
Tsunami
It
could have
wouldn't
been a
it
grand
wouldn't have.
finalist, my man, in the right timeline.
It could have, but we're not in that timeline, so. But the yeah no we saw M2 struggle against Tiberius. It would have no hope against the actual king of UK crushers.
Okay, so as it goes, we have Razor beating 14 out of 16 semi-finalists. So pretty safe bet if Razor had entered, it would be minimum making a grand final.
Yeah, Series 7 definitely added a lot of really good modern machines, but Razer was still obviously way at such a high level that it would easily be able to compete with most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if they fixed up the power issues the crusher was having in good motors after the series after the Extreme 2 incidents, then yeah we'd still be looking at a world beater. So
Yeah, and however, Razor did not enter Series 7 and pretty much went into retirement, which I do think if it had fought on the live scene, at least in the first years, it could have continued being incredibly dominant. Like, eventually, especially with the small arenas, armor would have gotten too good, probably ground clearance would. We'd be getting to the point where, like, bots like even the modernized Chronic would just be chucking them out from half court. But I do think definitely in like 2004, 2005, they probably could have won some UK championships.
yeah, yeah, they almost certainly would have, but I I I do appreciate that it had its time in the sun and they decided to step back when they
Yeah,
needed to.
it
Yeah.
all just about ended at the exact perfect moment. Obviously, it's great that they came back as well for one episode, but the main
Yep.
peak era
Yep, and we're
was
gonna get
still
to that
perfectly
now.
timed.
I assume.
Yes, modern era Razor in Series 8. Not particularly modern. They've taken out they've replaced their chunky like lead acid batteries with lipos and yeah, they entered into Series 8 and Menton very wisely put them first battle, first episode. It's what the people want to see. And yeah, they are up against their arch rivals, Cold Fusion team, although poor Robin Herrick, I don't think was around for any of those fights. Unless was he there for the Series 4 one?
No, not as far as I'm aware, but don't quote me on
No,
that.
so
I don't exactly stalk the whereabouts of Robin Herrick's Robot Wars appearances, so I can't give a definitive answer there.
so yeah, Razor was very much like one shall stand, one shall fall, and Robin Herrick is like, who are you? Sorry.
Lol. He's just like, oh, okay, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. As go back and watch our previous Razor April Fools episode if you want our take on this one. But yeah,
Well, I was gonna say this was not an optimal lineup for Razor, and I was surprised. I thought they'd give him an easy one.
I think they wanted Razor there to appear and hopefully pass the heat, but I think Menton was definitely interested in getting new stars established. I
Well,
mean,
I guess. I mean, they could have given him the one with Chomp a Lot, Crazy Coop 88, and what was the third one there?
well, if you want to give them an optimal heat, you give them
Terminal, right?
You give them Dan Tom Kier's melee and just slot Razor in.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's true
yeah.
too.
the funny thing I find about this is that you've got Terahertz and Behemoth are both here. Like, these are both robots that Razer has crushed in previous tournaments, and yet, like, you'd think that, like, in a perfect world it would go out to one of them, and no, it just gets it suicides against something tangentially related to Pussycat.
It's poetic though. Like it's like friggin' Ahab going down fighting Moby Dick.
Yeah,
Like it's like Razer just sliding into the pit screaming, "With hell's heart I stab at thee."
yeah, yeah, and it's just like it goes down finally on top of a Team Cold Fusion robot.
Yeah. In terms of the fights it would have had if it had successfully pitted them. We've discussed this before in random tangential episodes. Razer versus Carbide, what do we think? I am personally of the opinion that this would have been a good thing.
I'm of the opinion that it would have been a good thing if Carbide worked all the way through. But this was Series 8 Carbide. It did have issues with its bar, particularly in this episode. There is a incredibly cursed timeline out there where they did fight and Carbide's bar stopped and Razer won.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, if that timeline happened, it's because Razer's like extra armor worked so well, which is impressive in a way.
Yeah, that's what the extra weight went into there, like anti-spinner plow. Dave Moulds has publicly said that he did not fear that thing at all. It was mild steel. Carbide would cut through it like butter.
That spinner plow wasn't going to do shit against Carbide. It would probably have worked really well during Series 7.
Oh yeah.
Like, but yeah, no, it would not have made any progress.
I do, yeah. I mean, I think this would have been a good fight for two reasons. One, I cannot imagine how many people changed channel when Razer just fell into the pit, and seeing it instead die like a warrior's death, like a very visual death against an obvious new star would have been. It's not going to save nothing saving Robot Wars, but it would have helped.
It would, yeah. It's just something that would have made it even clearer. I mean, everyone was impressed by Carbide, but it would have made it even clearer just how impressive modern machines could be in general if Razer, the star of the old day, also got mangled up. And I would have been willing to have that happen if it helped in any way.
And the thing is, Dave Mould, he's going to be respectful of Robot Wars. He's not going to make Razer into Splinter.
No.
Once he immobilizes it, he's going to back off.
Yeah.
He's
like he'll call Razer is just sadly too fragile in the modern day that it would have taken enough visual damage to look an impressive amount, but yeah, as you say, Dave Moulds wouldn't have taken off every single wheel. Like one might have gone flying off just by default, but he wouldn't have milliamp bugged Razer.
I think one thing that is interesting. I think if Razer had made it to round 2, they may have actually decided to pay a bit more attention to the history of the show in Series 8.
Maybe.
In Series 8, like they practically treat like Behemoth and Terahertz like they're new machines, and they are new machines, but they're not new teams.
Yeah, it's because their bots had been more modernized. Yeah.
Yeah, they basically Razer's the only one they even give a mention to. They just say, "Oh, it's a bit of an all-star," and then like never mention it again.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Behemoth and Terahertz, they're not as many people just tuning into BBC Two to see what this is all about. They probably won't remember Terahertz, but if you care enough to tune into Robot World, you know who Razer is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if anything, more sad than the Razer versus Carbide fight would have been the earlier fight against Behemoth, because Behemoth would have just chucked him around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, Razer was actually had the potential to make appearances deeper into the episode, if Nuts had been too bashed up from its fight with Carbide, and they'd withdrawn. They were gonna put Razer in the arena with the Nuts mini-bots.
That would have been great. I mean, Razer versus Terahertz wouldn't have been great because Terahertz had its axe working by now, but Razer with the Nuts mini-bots would have been amazing.
Can you imagine though if the Nuts mini-bots had wedged under the other robots and stopped them moving so that Razer could
Oh mate,
on them?
they wedge under Terahertz. Razer gets around to that polycard back floor.
Yeah. It would have been
Beautiful.
nice to see Razer do something before it died.
Yeah.
They
But
just
at the
gave
same
it
time,
super awkward opponents. Like Nuts,
yeah,
it's
they
never
did.
really going to get to grips with, and it didn't really try to.
Though we did get the lovely image of it carrying one of
Yes, we did.
the mini bots around.
Though even that you couldn't fully see because of the like hideously strong red lighting that happened in Series 8 sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It certainly looks better in motion than it does in stills.
Yeah.
So production reached out to Team Razer for Series 9, and quite wisely they declined.
It's a shame, but yeah.
Though given that this was at the point where BattleBots seem to be pretty dead, it's been interesting to see if they turn up with fucking Warhead.
Well,
yeah,
that's just
pretty
one
cool.
thing. I want to comment on, right? For one of the most famous teams in robot combat, it's got to be reckoned with how insane it is that Team Razer not only ever built two robots, as in consistent designs, like the way Behemoth is one robot. They only ever literally built two physical robots.
Yeah.
They built Razer in 1998 and just modified it and used it all the way through then. They built Warhead in 2002, I guess, and then literally just used that until until the spinner literally broke from all the stress. This is not a team. Yeah, this is a team that was very happy to just keep using the same thing for a long time, and
I hope they come back to BattleBots with something.
It doesn't seem
think
like they will, but
I think at this point, Team Razer is. I think at this point they've retired.
yeah,
I mean,
Ian said recently that him and Simon have their more modern interests now that they are involved with, and they love the memories they had, but it would always be charming if they did come back.
what a record, honestly. I mean, yeah, and I mean, just kind of capping off Razer as a whole. One thing that really shows just how iconic this machine is. At the first King of Bots, not only was Ian Lewis one of the judges, they had a massive sculpture of Razer outside in friggin' China. Like these guys weren't getting robot wars on I don't know Chinese state television or anything, but still, it's that iconic.
And you've got like Quantum is very clearly taking a lot of inspiration from Razer.
It's Quantum is like the first Crusher since Razer that really got what Razer was about. It was never about the Crusher. Well, Quantum is about the Crusher power, but it was also about the, having an amazing wedge and also looking so fucking cool.
Yep. Like it's the best looking robot ever on the show. I I will hear no arguments against that.
And yeah, since this episode by the time this episode comes out, the iconic bots will be completed. Yeah, all of that and more, everything we've covered in the past 3 hours
Pretty
shows
much.
why it's number one.
Yeah.
Best combat record, best looking, best of all time.
We haven't put it in, we haven't directly stated it, but it's combat record just on Robot Wars itself, not ruling in things like its BattleBots appearance and that kind of thing. It had 40 wins and 7 losses.
Pretty decent.
Yeah, and that's not counting things like Gauntlet and trial runs, or it getting defaulted over Prometheus or anything like that. It's it had this it had an absolutely amazing run, and God, it's just so good.
And so yeah, to cap things off, favorite fights, and do we have to do worst fights? I don't want to end this episode with worst fights.
We don't need to do worst fights.
Worst fights will be, I don't know, more to spawn again ones, I guess. There.
Yeah,
Any of the
probably.
ones where Razer just chews on something for 5 minutes and doesn't do anything fun with it.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go with versus Firestorm 3 in Series 5.
It's very much up there. I'll go with the Millian bug fight.
It's a fantastic fight.
Should we do like we did with Hypnodisc, where we do like the best fight as a fight and the best fight as just Razer showing up?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds, yeah, I like that.
Okay, so best fight as a fight first. Then I've said mine.
I think Series 6 Grand Finals, mine. But
Fair enough.
But against Firestorm in 3, in 5, is a very close second.
I think versus 13 Black is just a show of what they can do against the theoretically very daunting and rock paper scissors disadvantage sort of thing.
That's
Obviously, you have
a good shout, yeah.
the comeback in the first World Championship final as well as one of the proper Razer grind outs that it shows it can always overcome hard opponents. It just has so many fun fights, so many notable ones. You know, we haven't even mentioned the bloody Matilda chew up.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk performance as well, the second round of the Southern Annihilator.
Mate, it takes two of them out.
Takes out the number 6 and number 10 seed in the same round.
Yeah. Jeez.
Are we talking the best done dominance now?
Whatever you like, and then obviously the series 6 melee I adore.
I think that the obvious answer is versus Techno Lease. They get to show off everything.
That's a fun one.
It doesn't even only take the Mickey, shall we say, with Techno Lease. It bloody nearly rips Shunt's entire scoop off as well.
I'm gonna go with the Widow's Revenge fight as my favourite, just Razer chewing things up fight, because it is just it's funny, like it's and for a robot that's as serious minded as Razer, it's always good to get some comedy out of them.
Yeah, great team, Ian, Simon, and Vinny.
Good lads.
All right. Well, that caps off a thing officially. Or let me check the time.
I have 121.
Just about the longest episode I think we've ever done.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I think it's on par with Chaos 2 Part 2, just about. So yeah, after all that, I have been your host, Luke, and with me has been Nick, Dan, and our special guest, Resett's Replicas. Thank you for joining us.
Oh.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you as always, Luke.
I'm sure we'll find some other eps in the future you can guest on.
Awesome.
But until then, goodbye.
Farewell.
Goodbye.
Peace.